The cursor blinked on my laptop screen, mocking me with its steady rhythm, while I tried to remember what I'd been typing before Matteo walked past my desk. Again. For the third time in 20 minutes, which wasn't unusual, but today felt different. Today, he'd paused each time, his presence a tangible weight that made the air in my small office feel thinner. I was supposed to be finalizing the campaign metrics for our latest product launch, but my brain had turned to static the moment his cologne, something expensive and dark that probably cost more than my monthly rent, had drifted through my doorway during his first pass. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The spreadsheet needed attention. The presentation needed polish. Everything needed to be perfect because Matteo Christensen demanded perfection. And in the 8 months I'd worked as his marketing executive, I'd learned that falling short wasn't an option. Outside my office window, Copenhagen's November rain painted the glass in diagonal streaks. The weather matched my mood, gray, uncertain, caught between what I wanted to ignore and what I couldn't stop noticing. "Know me." His voice came from my doorway, and I jumped slightly, my hand knocking against my coffee mug. Cold liquid sloshed over the rim onto my wrist. "Mr. Christensen." I grabbed a napkin, blotting at the mess while trying to look composed, trying to ignore how my pulse had kicked up simply because he'd said my name in that particular way. Low, deliberate, like he was tasting each syllable. He stepped into my office without invitation, which was typical. Matteo didn't ask permission. He moved through spaces like he owned them, which, technically, he did own this entire building and the 3 others that housed his business empire. But it was more than that. It was the way he carried himself. Tall frame, dark hair styled with casual precision. Suits tailored so perfectly, they looked like they'd been sewn directly onto his body. The Hansen account presentation. He moved to my desk, standing too close to be professional. "You're presenting it tomorrow." I thought Casper's no longer on the account. Matteo's gray eyes fixed on mine, and I felt pinned. "You're handling it. I need someone I can trust to represent our brand accurately." My mouth went dry. The Hansen account was massive, a hotel chain looking to rebrand their entire luxury division. Casper Rasmussen had been preparing for weeks, and now, 24 hours before the pitch, I was taking over. "I can do it," I heard myself say, even though panic was already climbing my spine. "I'll need access to Casper's files and..." "Already in your shared drive." He glanced at my computer screen, then back to me. "You'll work late tonight. I'll stay to answer any questions." It wasn't an offer. It was a statement of fact. "That's not necessary, Mr. Christensen. I'll be in my office." He turned to leave, then paused at my doorway. "And know me? Wear the navy suit tomorrow, the one with the fitted jacket." Heat crawled up my neck. He'd noticed what I wore. I thought I'd been careful to maintain professional distance, to treat him like any other employer despite the way my stomach flipped every time he looked at me with those intense gray eyes. After he left, I sat frozen for a full minute before forcing myself to open the shared drive. Casper's files were immaculate, detailed, exactly what I needed. But underneath the relief was a question I'd been avoiding for months. Why did Matteo pull me into projects at the last minute? Why did he find reasons to keep me late? Why did he care what suit I wore? I pushed the thoughts away and dove into the presentation. By 7 p.m., the office had emptied, except for Matteo and me. I could hear him occasionally on phone calls, his voice carrying through the walls in bursts of rapid Danish that I'd learned to recognize as business negotiations. Sometimes I caught Italian phrases mixed in, remnants of his mother's heritage that only emerged when he was particularly frustrated or focused. At 9, I finally stood to stretch, my back aching from hours hunched over spreadsheets. My office felt stuffy, the heating system too efficient for late-night work. I'd shed my cardigan hours ago, working in just my simple cream blouse and pencil skirt. I was reaching for my water bottle when Matteo appeared in my doorway again. This time, his tie was loosened, his jacket discarded somewhere. The top button of his shirt was undone, and I caught a glimpse of his collarbone before forcing my gaze back to his face. "How's it going?" He stepped inside, and I became hyper-aware of how empty the building was, how alone we were. "Good. I think I have the main points structured. I just need to refine the closing pitch." He moved around my desk to look at my screen, standing beside me. Too close. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, could smell that cologne again mixed with something earthier, his own scent underneath. This section. He leaned forward, pointing at my screen. His arm brushed against mine, and electricity shot through me. "You're being too cautious. Hansen wants bold. They want transformation." His finger traced along the text, and I found myself watching his hand. Strong, capable, with a signet ring on his right pinky that I'd learned was a family heirloom. There was a small scar across his knuckles that I'd spent more time than I should wondering about. "Rewrite this paragraph." He straightened, but didn't step back. "Show them we're not just updating their image, we're revolutionizing their market position." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He was so close I could count his eyelashes if I was bold enough to look up. "You're nervous." It wasn't a question. "It's a big account." "That's not why you're nervous." His voice dropped lower. "You're nervous because I'm standing too close to you." My breath caught. "Mr. Christensen, Matteo." He didn't move away. "When it's just us, call me Matteo." "That wouldn't be appropriate." "Appropriate." He tested the word like it was foreign. "You've worked for me for 8 months, Nomi. You've never called me by my first name. Never even slipped once. Because slipping meant acknowledging something I couldn't afford to acknowledge. That somewhere between the demanding deadlines and his intense scrutiny, I'd developed feelings that went far beyond professional respect. I should finish this. I gestured vaguely at my computer. The presentation can wait 5 minutes. He reached past me, closing my laptop with deliberate slowness. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What?" "Why did you block Mads Larson on social media last week?" The question hit me like cold water. How did he know about that? Mads was my ex-boyfriend from university. And yes, I'd finally blocked him after 2 years of intermittent checking-in messages that made me uncomfortable. But how did Matteo... I monitor potential security threats to my employees. His voice was carefully neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. When someone repeatedly contacts one of my executives after being asked to stop, I notice. He's not a threat. He's just persistent. I tried to step back, but my chair blocked me. It's personal. It doesn't affect my work. Everything about you affects your work. The intensity in his voice made me look up, and I immediately regretted it. His gaze was dark, focused, like I was a problem he was trying to solve. You've been distracted. More than usual. More than usual? Defensiveness crept into my tone. I complete every project ahead of schedule. My campaigns consistently outperform projections. If you're implying, I'm not criticizing your work. He cut me off gently. I'm asking if you're okay. The concern in his voice disarmed me. Matteo Christensen, notorious for his ruthless business tactics, feared by competitors, known for dismantling careers with single sentences, was asking if I was okay? I'm fine, I managed. Mads and I dated for 4 years. We broke up 2 years ago. He struggles with closure. But I've handled it. By blocking him. By setting a boundary. I met his eyes, which is healthy and appropriate. Something that might have been approval crossed his face. Good. The silence stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. I became aware of how late it was, how empty the building felt, how intimate this moment was despite the fluorescent lighting and office furniture. You should go home. Matteo said finally, but he didn't move. It's late. You're still here. I'm always here. A hint of weariness touched his voice. The company doesn't sleep. I don't get that luxury. For the first time, I noticed the shadows under his eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. Matteo projected invincibility, but standing this close, I could see the cracks in the armor. The presentation will be perfect, I said softly. Thank you for trusting me with it. He studied me for a long moment. I trust very few people, Nomi. You're one of them. Then he stepped back, grabbed his jacket from where he'd apparently draped it over my spare chair, and left without another word. I stood there for several minutes after he'd gone, trying to steady my breathing, trying to convince myself that the conversation had been normal, professional, nothing to dissect. But my hands were shaking as I packed up my laptop. I took the train home to my small apartment in Nuremberg, the presentation files loaded on my tablet for final review. The November cold bit through my coat as I walked from the station, and I found myself thinking about Matteo's office. Always perfectly climate-controlled, always comfortable. My apartment was dark when I entered. My roommate Sophie was visiting family in Aalborg, so I had the space to myself. I should have felt relieved. Instead, the emptiness felt oppressive. I changed into comfortable clothes, made chamomile tea, and settled onto my worn couch with my tablet. But before opening the presentation files, I made a mistake. I opened Instagram. My latest post was from last weekend, a photo Sophie had taken of me at a cafe, laughing at something off camera. I looked happy in it, relaxed in a way I rarely felt at work. The cream sweater I wore brought out the warmth in my brown eyes, and for once, my perpetually anxious expression had smoothed into something almost peaceful. The post had the usual likes and comments from friends, but one comment, posted 3 hours ago, made my stomach drop. Schmads Larson. I miss you. We should talk. I stared at the words, feeling the familiar mixture of guilt and irritation. Mads had been my first serious relationship, and ending things had been painful for both of us. But I'd been clear. We wanted different things. He wanted security and routine. I wanted growth, even if growth meant uncertainty. Blocking him last week had felt empowering. Seeing him circumvent it by commenting publicly felt violating. I was reaching to delete the comment when a new notification appeared. And Matteo Christensen replied, "My girl." My breath stopped. Matteo had Instagram? I'd never seen him use social media. His company had official accounts, but I'd assumed he delegated all that to the communications team. Yet here was his verified profile, minimal posts, thousands of followers, and a comment on my photo that had just exploded my carefully maintained professional boundaries. My girl. 2 words that changed everything. I didn't sleep. How could I, when those 2 words kept replaying in my mind like a glitch in reality? My girl, posted publicly where anyone could see. My colleagues, my friends, my ex-boyfriend who'd prompted this entire mess. By 6 a.m., I gave up on rest and showered, my movements mechanical. The navy suit Matteo had mentioned hung in my closet, and I found myself staring at it with a mixture of resentment and something more complicated. He'd noticed this suit specifically, which meant he'd been paying attention to my wardrobe, cataloging details I thought I'd kept invisible. The fitted jacket hugged my frame perfectly, professional but undeniably feminine. Paired with a silk blouse and modest heels, I looked capable, confident, like someone who could present a 1,000,000 kroner account without her voice shaking, like someone who could confront her boss about crossing boundaries. My phone buzzed as I applied minimal makeup. A text from Sophie. Matteo Christensen called you his girl? What is happening? I ignored it. I'd deal with Sophie's interrogation later. The office building looked different in early morning light, all glass and steel, imposing. Matteo's empire made tangible. I'd been so focused on surviving each day that I'd never really considered what it meant to work for a man like him. What power he wielded, not just in business, but in the shadowy spaces where business intersected with things people didn't discuss openly. I'd heard whispers, rumors about his family's connections, about deals made in smoke-filled rooms, about competitors who'd suddenly decided to relocate. Nothing concrete. Nothing I could point to and say, this is proof. But the whispers existed, carried on the same wind that brought his reputation for ruthlessness. And now he'd claimed me publicly. I arrived at 7:30 to find the office already humming with activity. My colleagues glanced at me as I passed, their expressions ranging from curious to envious to concerned. Apparently, everyone had seen the Instagram comment. Nikolai Peterson, Mateo's right hand, stopped me outside my office. He was a mountain of a man with kind eyes that seemed incongruous with his intimidating build. Know me. His voice was gentle. Mr. Christensen wants to see you before the Hansen presentation. 9 a.m. in his office. About the presentation? He didn't specify. Nikolai's expression was carefully neutral. But I'd prepare for multiple topics. After he left, I locked my office door and allowed myself exactly 3 minutes to panic. My breathing came fast and shallow, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of my desk. What was I doing? I should march up to Mateo's office right now and demand he explain himself. Or I should quit. Or I should... A knock interrupted my spiral. Know me? Sophie's voice filtered through the door. Let me in. I unlocked it to find my best friend holding 2 coffees and looking determined. Sophie Hansen, no relation to the hotel chain she always clarified, was everything I wasn't. Bold, outspoken, unapologetically herself. We'd been assigned as roommates during university and had been inseparable since. You look like you're about to throw up. She thrust a coffee at me. Drink, breathe, talk. I can't talk about this. He called you his girl on a public Instagram post. Sophie closed my office door behind her. That's not a can't talk about it situation. That's a requires immediate debriefing situation. I sank into my chair. I don't know what it means. It means your insanely hot, terrifyingly powerful boss just publicly claimed you. Sophie perched on my desk. Question is, how do you feel about that? How did I feel? Confused, terrified, exhilarated. Like I'd been seen in a way I'd been trying to avoid being seen for 8 months. He has no right, I started. Does he? Sophie interrupted gently. Know me. I've watched you pretend not to notice how he looks at you. How he finds excuses to keep you late. How he shows up wherever you are in the building like he's magnetically pulled to your location. That's just, he's particular about the work. He wants things done correctly. He wants you. Sophie's voice was matter of fact. And unless I'm completely misreading the past 8 months, you want him too. I opened my mouth to deny it, then closed it again. What was the point of lying to Sophie? She knew me too well. It doesn't matter what I want, I said finally. He's my employer. There are rules. Mateo Christensen doesn't follow other people's rules. Sophie stood, squeezing my shoulder. Question is, do you have the courage to stop hiding behind yours? After she left, I spent the next hour perfecting the Hansen presentation, burying myself in work because work was safe. Work made sense. Work didn't require me to examine feelings I'd been suppressing since my 3rd week of employment, when Mateo had stayed late to help me debug a campaign crisis, and I'd glimpsed the brilliant, focused mind beneath the intimidating exterior. At 8:50, I gathered my materials and headed to Mateo's office on the top floor. His assistant's desk was empty. She didn't arrive until 9, so I knocked directly on his door. Come in. He was standing by his floor-to-ceiling windows, hands in his pockets, looking out over Copenhagen. The morning light turned his dark hair almost bronze, highlighting the sharp planes of his face. He wore another impeccable suit, charcoal today, and I found myself remembering Sophie's words. Insanely hot. Know me. He turned, and his eyes traveled over me slowly, cataloging the navy suit. Perfect. You wanted to see me before the presentation. I did. He moved to his desk, leaning against it casually. Too casually. Like he was trying to appear relaxed when every line of his body radiated tension. About last night. My stomach clenched. The Instagram comment. Yes. It was inappropriate. I forced steel into my voice. It crossed professional boundaries and put me in an uncomfortable position. I need you to delete it and refrain from... No. The single word stopped me cold. No? I repeated. I'm not deleting it. He crossed his arms. And I'm not apologizing for it. Anger flared in my chest. Hot and sudden. You can't just... You had no right... Your ex-boyfriend commented on your photo saying he missed you. Mateo's voice was controlled, but something dangerous lurked underneath. After you blocked him, after you set a boundary, he violated that boundary publicly, and I responded. By claiming ownership of me, by making it clear you're not available. He pushed off the desk, moving toward me. There's a difference, not in how it looks to everyone in this office. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Not in how it makes me appear to clients, to colleagues. How does it make you appear? Like I. I couldn't finish the sentence. Like you're mine. He closed the distance between us. Is that what bothers you, Nomi? The implication, or the fact that it's true? It's not true. I'm your employee. That's all. Is it? His gray eyes pinned me. Then why do you avoid looking at me during meetings? Why do you leave rooms the moment I enter them? Why do your hands shake every time I stand too close? Because you terrify me, I wanted to say. Because I feel things for you that I have no business feeling. Because when you look at me like you're looking at me right now, I forget every reasonable objection I've ever had. This is inappropriate, I managed. I could report this to HR. You could. He didn't back away. You won't. You're that confident? I'm that observant. His voice softened slightly. I know you know me. Better than you think. I know you stay late not because I ask you to, but because you lose yourself in the work. I know you prefer tea to coffee, but drink coffee because it's what's available in the break room. I know you touch your grandmother's ring when you're nervous. His gaze dropped to my right hand, where I was indeed spinning the delicate gold band I never removed. I know you're brilliant and underestimated and so careful about letting anyone see who you really are. My throat tightened. Stop. Why? Because I'm saying things you don't want to hear? Or because you've spent 8 months pretending you don't feel what I know you feel? You don't know what I feel. Then tell me I'm wrong. He was so close now I could feel his breath. Tell me you don't think about me when you're alone. Tell me you don't notice when I'm watching you. Tell me the idea of being mine doesn't send heat through your entire body. I couldn't. God help me. I couldn't lie with him looking at me like that. This can't happen, I whispered instead. You're my boss. There are rules. I don't care about rules. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw without quite touching. I care about you. The admission hung between us, heavy with implications. My mind raced through objections, the power dynamic, the professional consequences, the complications. But my body had already made its decision, swaying toward him like a compass finding north. Mateo. His name felt strange on my tongue, intimate. I can't lose this job. I can't afford... You'll never lose this job. His voice was fierce. Not while I'm breathing. But I need to know. Is it just the job you're afraid of losing? Or is it something else? What else? My carefully constructed walls. My safety and emotional distance. The person I'd convinced myself I needed to be. Professional, untouchable, safe. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frustration flickering across his face. The Hansen team is early. They're in the conference room. He stepped back, and I felt the absence of his proximity like a physical loss. We'll finish this conversation later. Matteo, later, Nomi. His voice carried a promise and a warning. After you dazzle them with your presentation. The Hansen pitch went flawlessly. I presented with a confidence I didn't entirely feel, channeling nerves into energy. The hotel executives nodded approvingly. Matteo sat at the head of the conference table, his expression neutral, but I felt his attention on me throughout. Tracking my movements, noting when I improvised, silently supporting. When I finished, Mr. Hansen himself stood to shake my hand. Brilliant work, Ms. Thompson. Exactly the fresh perspective we needed. After they left, my colleagues congratulated me. Casper Rasmussen, the executive I'd replaced on the account, approached with a tight smile. Nice presentation, he said, though his eyes were cold. Mr. Christensen clearly has faith in you. The implication was clear, and now everyone knew why. I retreated to my office, exhaustion crashing over me. My phone showed 17 unread messages, Sophie demanding updates, my mother asking about dinner this weekend, and several texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Colleagues gossiping, probably. And one text from Matteo, sent during the presentation. You were perfect. My office, 6 p.m. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if I had the courage to show up. I did show up, of course. Because despite every reasonable objection, every professional boundary I should have maintained, I needed answers. And maybe I needed to stop hiding from what I'd been feeling since my second month of employment, when Matteo had defended my campaign strategy in a board meeting with such fierce conviction that I'd realized he actually listened to me, saw me, valued my ideas in ways my previous employers never had. His office was dark when I entered at 6 p.m., lit only by the amber glow of desk lamps. Matteo stood by the windows again, Copenhagen's evening skyline glittering behind him. He'd shed his jacket, his white shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing corded forearms. The vulnerability of the gesture struck me. This small concession to comfort from a man who usually presented flawless control. Close the door, he said without turning. I did, my heart hammering. The Hansen account loved you. He faced me then, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Pride? Possessiveness? They specifically requested you for all future projects. That's good for the company. It's good for you. He moved toward his desk, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. You deserve recognition for your work. He offered me 1 glass. I took it, our fingers brushing. Electricity shot through me at the contact, and from the way his jaw tightened, he'd felt it too. I didn't come here to discuss the Hansen account, I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. I know. He took a deliberate sip, his eyes never leaving mine. You came for answers. You said we'd finish our conversation, the one about, I gestured vaguely, about why you think you have the right to call me yours. Not think, no. He set down his glass. And before you object again, let me show you something. He moved to his desk, opening a locked drawer. From it, he pulled a file folder. My name was printed on the tab. When I hired you 8 months ago, he began, it was because your portfolio was exceptional. Your campaigns for that struggling bookshop chain in Odense. You didn't just increase their visibility. You gave them an identity. Made people care about something they'd ignored for years. I remembered that project. It had been a labor of love, working with a family-owned business that was being crushed by corporate competitors. I'd crafted a campaign around the owner's story, their passion for literature, their role as community gathering space. It had felt personal in ways most marketing never did. I didn't expect to care about you beyond your professional value, Matteo continued, opening the file. But then you started working for me, and I noticed things. He pulled out a paper, a performance review for my 3-month evaluation. My scores were exceptional, but there were handwritten notes in the margins. Matteo's handwriting. Stays late even when not required. Genuinely cares about project outcomes beyond metrics. Defensive about creative choices. Good. Means she has conviction. Avoided eye contact during review. Interesting. My face heated. You've been documenting me? Observing. He pulled out more papers. 4 months in, you launched the Rasmussen jewelry campaign. You remember? I nodded. It had been my first major solo project for his company. You stayed until midnight 3 days in a row perfecting the visuals. Nikolai reported finding you asleep at your desk on day 2. He handed me a photo, one I'd never seen. Me, slumped over my keyboard, exhausted. Someone had draped a blanket over my shoulders. You did this? I touched the photo. I told Nikolai to make sure you were warm, to order food to your office. His voice was soft. Even then, I knew I was in trouble. Trouble? You consumed my thoughts. He met my eyes directly. I'd be in critical negotiations, million-kroner decisions, and I'd wonder if you'd eaten lunch, if you were cold, if that Mads idiot was bothering you again. My mouth went dry. Matteo. 6 months in, I realized what was happening. He closed the folder. I was falling in love with my employee, with a woman so carefully professional that I had no idea if she felt anything for me beyond polite respect. The word love echoed through the office, impossible and real. You can't love me, I whispered. You barely know me. I know you. His intensity was overwhelming. I know you take your tea with honey and lemon. I know you walk to work even in rain because you like the time to think. I know you call your mother every Sunday evening at 7. I know you champion underdogs in every campaign because you identify with them. I know your smile is rare and genuine and worth every effort to earn. He moved closer. I know you're terrified of being vulnerable, of letting anyone see the parts of you that aren't carefully curated professional perfection. Tears burned behind my eyes. Stop. Why? Because I'm right. Because it doesn't matter. The words burst out, raw and desperate. Even if what you're saying is true, it doesn't change the reality. You're my employer. This is impossible. Why is it impossible? Because you hold all the power. I set down the whiskey glass before I dropped it. Because if this goes wrong, I lose everything and you lose nothing. Because everyone in this office already thinks I'm sleeping with you for advancement, and actually doing it would just confirm. Then quit. I stared at him. What? Quit. His voice was calm, certain. If the employer-employee dynamic is the problem, remove it. I'll write you a recommendation that will get you hired anywhere in Copenhagen. Any company would be lucky to have you. You're insane. I'm in love with you. He said it like it was simple fact. And I'm offering you a way to remove the obstacle you keep hiding behind. I can't just quit. I have rent, student loans. I'll cover your expenses until you find something else. He waved off my objection before I could voice it. Not as payment, as support. The way people who care about each other offer support. My mind reeled. You're serious. Completely. He closed the final distance between us. I want you, Nomi. Not as my employee. Not as some conquest. I want you as my partner. As someone I come home to, as someone who challenges me and trusts me and lets me see all the parts of her she hides from everyone else. You don't want me. I shook my head, panic rising. You want some idealized version you've constructed. You don't know about my anxiety, my insecurities. You don't know that I cry during stupid commercials, or that I'm terrified of being abandoned, or that I... Show me. He cupped my face gently, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. Show me all of it. The anxiety, the fear, the parts you think are too much. Let me prove I want those parts too. And suddenly I was crying, really crying, in my boss's office, 8 months of suppressed feelings spilling over. Mateo pulled me against his chest, one hand cradling the back of my head while the other pressed against my lower back. He didn't shush me or tell me to stop. He just held me, solid and warm, while I soaked his expensive shirt with tears. I'm so tired, I admitted against his chest. Tired of being careful, of hiding. Then stop hiding. His voice rumbled through me. At least with me. You're safe here, Nomi. I promise you that. I pulled back to look at him, and what I saw in his face stole my breath. Tenderness, certainty, and underneath it all, vulnerability that matched my own. If I say yes to this, I said carefully, I need things from you too. Name them. Honesty. Complete honesty about who you are and what you do. Something flickered in his expression. Nomi? I've heard the whispers, Mateo, about your family connections, about business deals that happen in shadows. If we're doing this, I need to know what I'm stepping into. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. My family has. Complicated history. My grandfather built this empire through methods that weren't always legal. My father tried to legitimize everything, and I've continued that work. But yes, there are still shadows, still connections to people who operate in gray areas. His jaw tightened. I've worked hard to separate my business from that world, but it's there. It follows me. Is there danger? Not to you. Never to you. The fierceness in his voice was absolute. Anyone who touched you would face consequences they couldn't imagine. It should have scared me. Instead, I felt strangely protected. I need independence, I continued. Room to make my own choices. I can't be someone's possession. You're not a possession. He traced my jawline gently. You're a partner, equal in all ways that matter. I need time to think about quitting, about us. This is moving too fast. Take all the time you need. He kissed my forehead, the gesture so tender it made my chest ache. But Nomi, I'm not going anywhere, whether you're my employee or not, whether this takes weeks or months to figure out. I'm here, waiting for you to be ready. We stood there in his office, holding each other as Copenhagen's lights glimmered outside. And for the first time in 8 months, I let myself admit the truth. I was falling for Matteo Christensen, and maybe, just maybe, that was okay. I didn't quit immediately. Not because I doubted Matteo's sincerity, but because I needed to prove something to myself. That I could navigate this situation without losing my professional identity. That choosing him didn't mean erasing me. The week after our conversation in his office, something shifted in how we moved around each other. At work, we maintained professional distance, but the awareness crackled between us constantly, a live wire neither of us could quite ignore. Matteo found small ways to show he meant his promises. When Casper made a snide comment about my Hansen account success in a meeting, Matteo's response was swift and brutal, reassigning Casper to grunt work projects until his attitude improved. When I stayed late on a particularly demanding campaign, food appeared at my desk. Always my favorites, always with a note in Matteo's handwriting. You need to eat. M. Don't skip dinner again. M. Stop working and go home. The campaign can wait until morning. M. I saved every note. The Thursday after our talk, Mateo asked me to dinner, not as employer and employee, as two people figuring out what they meant to each other. There's a place in Nihon, he said, standing in my office doorway with unusual hesitancy. Small, quiet, good food. Will you come with me? I should have said no. Should have maintained distance until I'd decided about quitting, about us. But when I looked at him, really looked at this powerful man who was offering me choice, patience, honesty, I found myself nodding. Yes, but I drive myself there and back. A small smile touched his lips. Independent to the core. 7 p.m.? That evening, I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing my outfit. Not the professional armor I wore to work, but a soft emerald dress that Sophie had convinced me to buy months ago. I left my hair down instead of pulled back in its usual twist. Applied makeup with a less careful hand, letting myself look softer. Less guarded. The restaurant was exactly as promised. Intimate, elegant, tucked away where tourists rarely ventured. Mateo waited at a corner table, and when he saw me, something raw crossed his face. Know me. He stood, pulling out my chair. You look different? Like yourself. His hand brushed my shoulder as I sat. Like the woman you are when you're not hiding behind professional distance. The evening unfolded like something from a dream. We talked about everything except work. His childhood in Copenhagen, my years at university, his complicated relationship with his father, my close bond with my mother. He asked questions that showed he'd been paying attention for months, and I found myself answering honestly in ways I rarely did. Tell me about Mads, he said eventually, his voice carefully neutral. The real story, not the professional summary. I twirled my wine glass, gathering courage. We met in my second year of university. He was safe, predictable. I thought that was what I wanted. Someone stable who wouldn't challenge me too much. I met Mateo's eyes. But safe turned into stifling. He wanted me to settle, to accept limitations. When I got the opportunity to interview at your company, he asked me not to go. Said I should stick with the small marketing firm where I was barely making rent. But you went anyway. I went anyway. I smiled slightly. Best decision I ever made, even though it meant ending a 4-year relationship and starting over alone. You're never alone anymore. Mateo's hand covered mine on the table. Not while I'm here. After dinner, he walked me to my car, his hand at the small of my back. The November air was sharp, but I barely felt it. When we reached my car, he opened the door for me, then hesitated. Can I kiss you? The question was soft, requesting permission rather than assuming it. My heart raced. Yes. He cupped my face with both hands, studying me for a long moment. Then his lips met mine, gentle, questioning. Nothing rushed or demanding. Just Mateo, asking me to let him in. I responded tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. My hands found his chest, feeling his heart hammer under my palms. The kiss deepened, and I tasted wine and promise and the beginning of something I'd been denying for too long. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Mateo rested his forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that for 8 months, he admitted. Only 8 months? 6.5 months to be precise. It was the day you presented the Aalborg tourism campaign and got so passionate about preserving local culture that you barely noticed you were arguing with the CEO. He smiled. You were magnificent. I wanted to kiss you right there in the conference room. That would have been inappropriate. Most of what I feel for you is inappropriate. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. But I'm done pretending otherwise. The next week, Mateo's protection became more visible. When a client made an inappropriate comment about my appearance, Mateo had him removed from the building within minutes. when someone leaked office gossip suggesting I'd slept my way to the Hansen account. Matteo launched an internal investigation that ended with 2 firings. "You can't fire everyone who says something about us," I told him after the second incident. "I can and will." His voice was steel. "You deserve respect. Anyone who can't provide that doesn't belong in my company." His intensity should have frightened me. Instead, I found it oddly freeing. For years, I'd absorbed disrespect with professional smiles, told myself to rise above it. Having someone willing to fight for me felt revolutionary. But with protection came possessiveness. Matteo started finding reasons to interrupt when male colleagues spoke to me. He'd appear at my office door during lunch if I mentioned eating with coworkers. He tracked my movements through the building with a focus that bordered on obsessive. 2 weeks after our first dinner, I confronted him about it. "You need to stop hovering," I said, standing in his office after everyone else had left. "I appreciate the support, but this is getting excessive." "Excessive?" He looked genuinely confused. "I'm ensuring your safety." "I'm in an office building, Matteo, not a war zone." "You don't know what people are capable of." Something dark flickered in his expression. "Especially people who feel threatened by your success." "So you're going to follow me everywhere? Monitor every interaction?" "If necessary." "That's not protection. That's control." The word hung between us, sharp-edged. Matteo was silent for a long moment. Then he sank into his desk chair, running a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "You're right." His voice was low. I'm not good at this, at caring about someone this much. It makes me want to wrap you in protection until nothing can touch you." I moved around his desk, turning his chair so he faced me. "I don't need wrapping. I need partnership. Trust that I can handle myself." "I know you can handle yourself, but that doesn't stop me from wanting—" He cut himself off. "Wanting what?" "To keep you safe. To make sure no one hurts you the way—" He looked away. "The way my mother was hurt." The admission startled me. Matteo rarely mentioned his mother. "What happened to her?" I asked gently. "My father's business associates." His jaw tightened. "They thought they could pressure him through her. They were wrong. But she paid the price for their attempt." "Matteo, she survived. But she was never the same. Never felt safe again." He met my eyes. "I won't let that happen to you. I can't." Understanding dawned. "So this isn't about controlling me. It's about protecting me from your world. Both." He pulled me between his knees, his hands settling on my hips. "I want you, Nomi. But I know what wanting you means, the risks it brings. And I'm terrified of those risks touching you." I threaded my fingers through his hair. "Then give me information instead of protection. Tell me what to watch for. Trust me to be your partner, not your responsibility." He looked up at me with such raw emotion that my breath caught. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." I smiled slightly. "But you're stuck with me anyway." He pulled me down into his lap, and I went willingly. We kissed slowly, thoroughly, learning each other without urgency. His hands mapped my body with reverent attention, and I found myself relaxing against him in ways I'd never relaxed with anyone. "Come home with me," he murmured against my throat. "Not just to be together. Let me cook you dinner. Let me show you who I am outside this office." "Okay." The word felt like a leap, but I was ready to jump. Matteo's home was a penthouse in Urestad, all sleek lines and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But what struck me most wasn't the obvious wealth. It was the signs of actual living. Books scattered on surfaces, a guitar in the corner, photos on shelves showing a younger Matteo with people who must be family. "You play guitar?" I touched the instrument gently. "Badly," He shrugged out of his jacket, suddenly looking less like a powerful executive and more like a man letting someone into his private space. My mother taught me. I never got very good, but I kept it after she. He didn't finish the sentence. I picked up a photo frame. Matteo, maybe 19, standing between an elegant woman with his eyes and a stern-looking older man. Your parents? Shortly before my mother's incident. His voice was carefully neutral. Before everything changed. I set the photo down, turning to face him. Tell me about it, the real story. So he did. We sat on his modern couch, Copenhagen glittering below us, while Matteo talked about growing up in a family where business and danger intertwined. About his grandfather's original empire built on black market shipping during the Second World War. About his father's attempts to legitimize everything. About the rivals who'd tried to pressure his father through his mother, leaving her traumatized even though she physically survived. I was 20, he said quietly. Old enough to understand what happened, but too young to prevent it. My father became paranoid after that. Controlled everything. Trusted no one. I swore I'd never be like him. He laughed without humor. But here I am, tracking your movements, firing anyone who looks at you wrong. You're not him. I took his hand. You're trying to protect, not control. There's a difference. Is there? It doesn't feel different when I'm obsessing over whether you ate lunch or if that Casper idiot said something to upset you. The difference is, you listen when I tell you to stop. I squeezed his hand. You're aware enough to recognize your behavior. That's not your father. That's you trying to do better. He pulled me against him, and I nestled into his side, feeling the solid warmth of him. We stayed like that for a long time, not speaking, just existing together. Eventually, Matteo cooked. Actual cooking, not ordering in. He moved around his kitchen with surprising competence, making pasta carbonara while I watched from a bar stool, asking questions about the recipes his mother had taught him. She was French originally, he explained, stirring cream. Met my father during a business trip to Paris. Everyone said it wouldn't work. Different worlds, different expectations. But they loved each other fiercely, until they couldn't anymore. What changed? Fear. He plated the food with precision. Fear of losing each other. It consumed them until there was nothing left but the fear. That won't be us, I said, with conviction I didn't entirely feel. No? He set a plate before me. How can you be sure? Because we're talking about it. Because you're letting me see this side of you. Because I'm choosing you with full knowledge of what it means. I took a bite of pasta. Perfect, of course. Your parents didn't have that choice. The danger was forced on them. But you're giving me all the information, letting me decide if this is worth the risk. And is it? His eyes were intense. Worth the risk? I set down my fork, meeting his gaze steadily. I quit today. Matteo went absolutely still. What? I submitted my resignation this afternoon, effective in 2 weeks, per my contract. My heart raced as I said it aloud. I'm taking the leap, Matteo. I'm choosing you. The relief that crossed his face was profound. He rounded the counter, pulling me off the bar stool into a fierce embrace. You're sure? He asked against my hair. You're completely sure? Terrified, but sure. I pulled back to look at him. I have interviews lined up at 3 companies, all of them excited about my work. I'll be fine professionally. You'll be more than fine. You're brilliant. He kissed me, deep, claiming, celebratory. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. 2 weeks. Then you're mine completely. I'm mine completely, I corrected gently. But yes, I'm yours too. Those final 2 weeks at Matteo's company were surreal. Everyone knew I was leaving, though the official reason given was pursuing new opportunities. The knowing looks and whispered conversations followed me through hallways. But Matteo had been right. Having made the decision lifted something heavy from my chest. He continued to maintain professional distance at work. But in private, his restraint crumbled. We spent every evening together, sometimes at his penthouse, sometimes at my modest apartment that he found charming despite its worn furniture. He met Sophie, who interrogated him thoroughly before giving her approval. He had dinner with my mother, charming her within minutes with his genuine interest in her garden designs. "He's intense," my mother observed later. "But he looks at you like you're his entire world. Don't take that lightly, Nomi." I couldn't. Because the more time I spent with Matteo, the more I understood the depth of what he was offering. Not just wealth or protection, but genuine partnership with a man who saw me, really saw me, in ways I'd never been seen before. My last day of work arrived with unexpected emotion. My colleagues threw me a small party, and even Casper managed a grudging farewell. But the moment that mattered came at 5 p.m., when I cleaned out my office for the final time. Matteo appeared in my doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. "All done?" "All done." I looked around the space that had been mine for 8 months, where I'd grown professionally, where I'd fallen for an impossible man. It's strange. Leaving. Necessary, though. He moved into the office, closing the door behind him. Because starting tomorrow, I want to be able to do this. He kissed me, slow, deep, thorough. The kind of kiss we'd been denying ourselves within these walls for weeks. When we broke apart, I was dizzy. "Tomorrow," I confirmed. "No more boss, no more employee, just us." "Just us," he agreed. "Though I should warn you, now that there are no professional boundaries, I plan to be insufferably attentive." I can handle insufferable. Can you handle me telling you I love you? The question was soft, vulnerable. Because I do know me. I love you. Have loved you for months. And I need you to know that before we move forward. Tears burned behind my eyes. I love you too, even though you're intense and overprotective and slightly insane. Only slightly? He smiled against my lips. I must be slipping. That night, we made love for the first time in his penthouse, Copenhagen's lights spreading below us like fallen stars. Matteo was reverent, patient, checking in constantly to ensure I was comfortable. The vulnerability of being completely seen, physically, emotionally, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt safe, cherished, home. Afterward, tangled in his sheets with his arm heavy around my waist, I traced patterns on his chest. "What happens now?" I asked. "With us? Now?" He captured my wandering hand, kissing my fingers. "Now I court you properly, take you on dates, show you off to everyone who matters, prove every day that choosing me was the right decision. You don't have to prove anything. I want to." He pulled me closer. "You took a risk on me, Nomi. I won't take that lightly." In the months that followed, Matteo kept that promise. We navigated the transition from employer-employee to partners with surprising ease. He supported my job search enthusiastically, celebrating when I accepted a position at a prestigious agency that valued my skills. He gave me space when I needed it, and was there when I wanted him close. But he also showed me his world, the complicated dance of legitimate business and shadow connections. He introduced me to people whose names appeared in newspapers, whose handshakes carried weight, and slowly, carefully, I built my own network within that world. Not as Matteo's girlfriend, but as Nomi Thompson, marketing executive with her own reputation. 6 months after leaving his company, Matteo took me back to the restaurant in Nyhavn, where we'd had our first real date. Over dessert, He handed me a small box. Inside was a key. "To the penthouse," he explained. "I want you to move in, not because I'm trying to control you or keep you close, but because coming home to you is the best part of my day, and I'm greedy for more of those moments." I studied the key, feeling the weight of what he was offering. "I keep my apartment, for now, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case you get tired of my organizational obsession or my need to work late or my tendency to cry during commercials." "Not possible." He took my hand. "But keep the apartment if it makes you feel secure. I just want you to know you have a home with me, whenever you're ready." I moved in 2 weeks later, my organizational obsession immediately transforming his minimalist penthouse into something lived in and warm. Mateo loved every change, from my books on his shelves to my tea collection taking over his kitchen. And when we curled up together at night, Copenhagen glowing below us, I felt something I'd rarely felt in my careful, controlled life, free, seen, loved exactly as I was. The Instagram post came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 9 months after Mateo's original "My Girl" comment that had started everything. I was getting ready for work. My new job at the prestigious agency was demanding but fulfilling when my phone exploded with notifications. 50, then 100, then more than I could count. Sophie called immediately. "Have you seen it?" "Seen what?" "Mateo's Instagram. Check. Now." I opened the app with trembling hands. Mateo had posted a photo, us at dinner last weekend, his arm around me, both of us laughing at something off camera. I looked happy in a way I'd never seen myself look before, unguarded, in love. The caption made my breath stop. 9 months ago, I claimed this woman as mine. Today, I'm asking her to make it official. "Nomi Thompson, will you marry me?" My phone immediately rang. Mateo's number. "Before you panic," he said when I answered, "look out your window." I crossed to the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows. Below in the courtyard, Mateo stood holding a sign large enough to read from 20 stories up. "I love you. Say yes." "You're insane," I managed, tears streaming down my face. "Is that a yes?" "You're supposed to ask in person, not announce it to the entire internet." I wanted everyone to know. No ambiguity, no room for doubt. You're mine, I'm yours, and I want the world to witness us choosing each other. His voice softened. "So I'll ask again properly. Come downstairs, Nomi. Let me do this right." I threw on clothes, not bothering with makeup, and took the elevator down with my heart in my throat. Mateo waited in the lobby, dressed for work, but holding a ring box that made everything real. When he saw me, tear-stained and disheveled, his face transformed into pure love. "You're beautiful," he said. "I'm a mess." "My mess." He took my hands, pulling me close. "Nomi Thompson, you walked into my company 9 months ago, and you've dismantled every wall I'd spent years building. You've shown me what partnership looks like, what trust means, what it feels like to be seen, truly seen, by someone who loves every complicated part of you." He sank to one knee, and I covered my mouth with shaking hands. "I don't deserve you, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life proving that choosing me was worth it?" "Yes." The word came out choked. "Yes, you impossible man. Yes." He slid the ring, a simple emerald surrounded by diamonds, onto my finger, then stood and pulled me into a kiss that felt like a promise. Around us, people in the lobby began applauding, but I barely heard them. "The Instagram post," I said when we broke apart. "Everyone's going to see. That's the point." He touched my face gently. "I want your ex-boyfriend to see. I want every person who ever underestimated you to see. I want the world to know that you're taken, treasured, and about to become my wife. Your wife. I tested the words. That's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Both. I laughed through tears, but mostly good. The months leading to our wedding were chaotic and perfect. My mother cried when we told her, then immediately began planning with an enthusiasm that both charmed and overwhelmed Mateo. Sophie became my self-appointed wedding coordinator, handling details with military precision. Mateo's family was more complicated. His father attended our engagement dinner but said little, his disapproval evident. But his mother, recovered now, though forever changed, embraced me warmly. He needs you, she told me quietly during that dinner. More than he'll ever admit. You soften him without diminishing him. That's rare. The wedding itself was small, intimate. Just family and close friends in a ceremony overlooking the water at Kronborg Castle. I wore a simple dress that made me feel like myself. Elegant, but not ostentatious. Mateo wore a suit that made my breath catch and looked at me throughout the ceremony like I was his entire world. When we exchanged vows, I promised to call him out when his protectiveness became controlling, to push back against his intensity, to be his partner rather than his possession. He promised to trust me, to give me space, to remember that loving me meant letting me be fully myself. I promise, he said, his voice rough with emotion, to spend every day proving that you made the right choice, that loving me, with all my complications and shadows, was worth the risk. It was, I assured him. It is. It always will be. Our first year of marriage taught us how to navigate the balance between his protective instincts and my fierce independence. Mateo struggled when I took on a high-profile campaign that required travel. He worried when I insisted on keeping my own career rather than becoming simply Mrs. Christensen. But he also listened when I explained that I needed to be more than his wife, that my identity mattered. And slowly, I watched him transform. Not into someone different, but into a fuller version of himself. The man who'd been so controlled, so careful about showing vulnerability, learned to let me see his fears. The intensity that had once manifested as possessiveness became fierce support for my ambitions. You're changing me, he admitted one night as we lay tangled together. Good change or bad change? Terrifying change. He kissed my forehead. The kind where I can't imagine who I was before you. 2 years into our marriage, I became pregnant. Unexpected, unplanned, but undeniably wanted. Mateo's reaction was pure terror mixed with joy, immediately tripling security, obsessing over prenatal care, reading every book on fatherhood he could find. You're spiraling, I told him gently when I found him at 2 a.m. researching childhood development. I want to be ready. You can't prepare for everything. I took the book from his hands. But you can trust that we'll figure it out together. Our daughter was born on a spring morning, tiny and perfect and loud. Mateo held her with such reverent care that I cried watching them. He'd built an empire, commanded respect through fear and strategic brilliance. But this small human reduced him to awed vulnerability. She's ours, he whispered, touching her small hand. We made her. We made her, I agreed. Our little miracle. Watching Mateo become a father revealed new dimensions of the man I'd married. His intensity focused entirely on our daughter's well-being. His protectiveness, still present but now understood, extended to another person who deserved fierce defense. And his capacity for love, which he'd spent years believing was limited, expanded in ways that humbled us both. 5 years into our marriage, I stood in our penthouse looking out at Copenhagen. Our daughter played nearby with blocks, her dark hair, Mateo's hair, falling into her face. My career had flourished, my confidence grown. I'd built a life that was mine while also being ours. Mateo came home, immediately swept our daughter into his arms, then crossed to kiss me with familiar passion. "How was your day?" he asked. "Exhausting. Brilliant. Yours?" "Better now." He pulled me close, our daughter between us. This is what I needed. Not just you, though you're everything, but this life we've built. This family. "No regrets?" I teased. "About the intense, overprotective tendencies? About falling for your former employee?" "Not a single one." He kissed me again. "Best decision I ever made was putting that Instagram comment on your photo." "You mean the territorial, possessive comment that announced to the world I was yours?" "Exactly that one." His smile was unrepentant. "Because it led to this. To you saying yes. To everything that matters. And looking at my husband. This impossible, intense, deeply loving man who'd seen me when I was hiding. I knew he was right. Some loves were safe. Some were expected. But ours was the kind that changed everything. The kind that demanded courage and honesty and constant choosing. The kind that was worth every risk, every complication, every moment of vulnerability. The kind that transformed two guarded people into partners who'd built something real. "I love you," I said simply. "I know." He touched my face gently. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes." Our daughter tugged at Mateo's sleeve, demanding his attention, and we both laughed. This beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect life was what we'd built together. And it was everything. When a powerful man learns to kneel, not in weakness, but in devotion, that's when true partnership begins. Nomi's journey from hiding in professional boundaries to embracing bold, authentic love reminds us that the most transformative relationships don't diminish us. They reveal who we've always been beneath the fear. If you've ever found yourself choosing courage over comfort, I'd love to hear about it. What's one moment when you stopped hiding and let someone truly see you? Hit like if this story touched your heart, and share your own moment of choosing love despite the fear.